Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mentoring with Geraldine and the Bite-Sized Podcast. I got my words muddled there. And I've got Christine with us from the Herbal Extract Company. And we're going to talk about a super special herb that they have just released. So obviously it's a herb that's been around a long time. It is, after all, what we do. We look at the traditional as well as the modern evidence. But they have just launched the beautiful, beautiful Saffron. And we were just talking before we came on about how amazing it is as a flower. And I tried to grow it and failed. So tell us what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see. It's a very beautiful purple flower. You can see from the monograph here. You can even see, you can see the, you look closer, you can even see the stigma, which is what's used in herbal medicine. It's a very rarely used plant part, actually. And I have our raw material here. It's very exciting to have this amazing herb that's the most expensive herb in the world.
It is, and it's not surprising. Each flower that grows out of the ground as a flower only has 3 of those stamens.
Yeah.
So growing them,
so expensive.
It's very, very, as the person going around picking them, collecting the 3 stamens from each flower is very, labor intensive.
Yes.
And you've got to grow a lot of them to be able to create this amazing herbal tincture. I mean, it's got a long traditional use. And when I first heard about it many, many moons ago was from a rep, and she was saying that traditionally in her culture, they'd make it as a tea. So they'd have 2 stamens in as a tea for eyesight.
Yes.
So, and that was the way that they had it traditionally as part of their culture. And her grandmother would drink 2 stamens every day in a cup of tea.
We can be high in antioxidants.
Look at it. Look how beautiful it is. And that the yellow is sticking to the side of the glass. So for those people who are watching the YouTube, you can see how amazing that touches on the side of the glass and how it grips and how it's an incredible, incredible saffron color. It is the color of the stamens. So often when we see a herbal tincture, it doesn't have the same color as what it's created from. But in that case, it really, really is saffron color, saffron smell. It is very distinctive.
The aroma that's coming here now is so, sweet and delicious. It's very distinctive. And so, why it's used in cuisine as well. It's highly prized in cuisine. And so, it has this exceptional taste and really unique aroma. And the reason, one of the, because it's the sort of most expensive spice in the world, we have to be very careful because it also means it's one of the most adulterated. So that is one area, making sure the identity and the quality, we have to really test to make sure that it's not adulterated. It can be adulterated with calendula, many flowers are the same color. There's a lot of documentation about adulteration of saffron, not just medicinal, but culinary as well.
Yes, I can imagine, because being so expensive and so unique. So when we might actually go back a little bit. When you receive herbs, they're actually all checked, aren't they? So what do they do in the lab when you receive them?
Well, before it goes, because we're TGA, Therapeutic Association licensed manufacturing facility, we are under their governance, and it includes good manufacturing practices. And so part of those, so we have a relationship with growers and suppliers. So they will send us a sample before we order it, and we'll test for quality and identity. So first of all, we're lucky because we don't make any sort of standardized herbs, as in we're not altering the chemistry. We don't receive powders. So we receive, as you can see, and I've shown you in a few others, the actual raw material, which helps identifying it, makes that a lot easier.
Yes.
Because when it's in a powder, you can't. So we look at that, and then in the lab they'll look at that under a microscope, and we have pharmacopoeias that will tell us what we need to be looking for as far as cell shapes and that sort of thing, and then we'll also do chemical testing. So we have HPLC and TLC, so thin layer chromatography and high performance liquid chromatography. And that looks at all the different chemicals, and we have pharmacopoeias and also testing standards that will tell us that that's the right herb. And once we are sure that we have a good quality, we've identified it to be the correct herb, then we'll put it into manufacture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very basic rundown of what we do. And then at the end, we test it again, and then it also gets tested for aflatoxins and bacterias and that sort of thing as well at the end.
Yeah. So because we did a live when I came to visit you in Sydney, or I visited the Herbal Extract Company. We went through and we looked at all of those huge bags of herbs and how they were all inspected. And we also saw bags of herbs that were rejected because they had contamination. So they'd gone to your lab, but because they'd gone to your lab and in your lab, they discovered this isn't what it says it is on the can or in the bag, they then sent it for external verification as well. So a lot of, it's not just that you're getting it from the same supplier, you're actually checking all of the batches to double check they really are what they say they are. And you're using external verification as well. So you've got a full lab there. You've got people doing the full lab all in their little glass room and with their big machines. And, so you really are checking. It says what it is. So we know that when we get your herbal extracts, we are really getting exactly what it says. And in the case of the saffron, what a stunner of a herb.
Yeah, very beautiful. And, with the adulteration, there's different, like sometimes it's not intentional. There might be a bag that was wrongly labelled. And we've often, well, not often, but it does happen. We've picked it up just, you can tell that that's not saffron. They've mislabelled it. So before we even do any testing, we can straight away go, that's wrong. Then sometimes while crafting, there might be some other herbs accidentally put in, or they haven't identified the plant properly. And again, we do that, we can already do that by looking at it. But, there's other, sometimes when you do the HPLC and you do the TLC, it's when the chemicals start coming through. That's, it hasn't been easy to identify just by looking at it. But once you look at the chemicals, we'll be like, that profile is totally unmatching the profile that we have, and that's happened with certain things as well. Yeah. We have to be very careful.
So it's amazing the process that these go through, and because we have the TGA in Australia, we're very, very lucky. You're not lucky because they come in and charge you like $1,000 an hour for you to prove that what you say is happening is really happening. But that means, and they're there for 2 or 3 days, I believe, every 3 years or something. So, but that for us means that we can be really assured of your product, of the Australian made product across all of the companies. So this isn't just you, but the TGA approved
facilities.
And the facility is amazing. So there is some of that. If you're in Strictly Education and Support peeps, then you can see that video in there, and the video is on the YouTube channel as well. But today in our podcast, so all the vision stuff is now finished for all you people listening, and we're going to talk about your new but old herb, saffron.
Yes.
So tell us about it.
So it's it's most famous. It's like over the last 3 decades, there's been a lot of increased scientific attention paid to saffron, examining its therapeutic uses. Cancer again as an adjuvant, cardiovascular disease, and depression, and it's also nicknamed the sunshine spice. It's red gold is for those looking, and the golden spice, but it's also known as the sunshine spice because not just because of its color, but because it brightens the mood And saffron has been used in traditional Persian medicine, where a lot of the research has been done for treating depression. And depression is the strongest that's the condition for which we have the strongest scientific support. So I think that's why it's become so popular, because there seems to be, unfortunately, an excess of depression in our society.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of research, even from last year, 2019. 14 milligrams twice a day was effective add-on. And again, this is exciting because they're taking, well, I haven't said it yet, but they're taking antidepressants, pharmaceutical antidepressants. We often get asked technical questions: can my patient take this herb with this drug? And often they're antidepressants, because a lot of people seem to be being treated for either anxiety or depression. So this study found that, yes, you could, saffron was an add-on to a pharmaceutical antidepressant in patients experiencing mild to moderate depression, not severe. So we have to sort of have the caveat, it's mild to moderate depression. Many of the people also reported improvements in their sleep, and it is known to be good for insomnia. So, and then they could take it with their antidepressant as well. And then there was another 2020 study this year, results 28-day random, one of the gold standard trials, suggesting that saffron intake was associated with improvements in sleep quality in adults with self-reported sleep complaints. So that's, as well as depression, it's also good for sleep, which go together often. Yeah.
It is a phenomenal herb, and it's got, and then one there that I quite liked that we didn't mention was not only those initial clinical trials for improving symptoms and effects of the mild to moderate depression, but it actually helped with excessive snacking behaviors, and we could all do with a bit of help with that, I feel, especially now we're all working from home and the refrigerator is so close.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, it's not going to stop you from walking to the fridge. But,
no,
you might actually not have the need to walk to the fridge.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing that you've written in there, that preliminary trials, was for Alzheimer's as well, because with the aging population, that's something that we really need to think about. As that rep all those years ago, she said, oh, my grandmother, 95 and still having her 2 strands every day for her eyesight. Whereas, of course, it might have actually been supporting so much more, with her 2 strands a day. So
and that's exciting to have the research on Alzheimer's, because I think from memory, I think it's the second biggest killer of Australians in that sort of older age bracket. Suicide, the biggest killer in the younger age bracket, unfortunately. So depression. Yeah. But in the older age bracket, it's after cardiovascular disease, which it's also good for, is Alzheimer's. And so this preliminary trial was 2020 this year. Wow. It's always great to have this new research. And it was on brain function. It was promising. And it was shown to be equally effective to common symptomatic drugs for mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
So that's great news.
That is great news.
Because, obviously Alzheimer's, it's better preventative medicine is the best.
Yes.
It looks like also, as well as once someone's been diagnosed with it, that this is going to be a good treatment.
Yeah. It's an absolutely phenomenal herb, and as they do more and more research on it, we learn more and more, and we're able to use it. And it's quite a low dose herb. It's not a huge dose herb either.
Well, no, especially because it's so expensive. That's good. Because it's so high in these antioxidants, you only need a small amount. You don't want to take too much. I've recently just finished the monograph, and it's the toxicity levels. I'll just have a look at them. That's not associated with toxicity ingested in amounts typically, used in food.
Yeah.
Or in the dosing that we recommend, it's a 1 to 20. So it's like, not really, really strong, as in so the dose, otherwise the dose would be too hard to give. So we have to make it, and plus it would be too expensive. So we have to make it in a 1 to 20. However, it can be lethal after 20 grams a day.
Right.
But, given that 30 to 50 milligrams a day is what's being recommended, it's very difficult to reach that. But it's it's strong.
Yeah, it's very strong. It's an amazing, I mean, look at it.
Look at wide therapeutic index,
Yeah, a wide therapeutic index. You can see, by the way, so those of you watching and those who've seen the herbal extract for themselves, the way it grips the glass is showing that antioxidant profile and that amazing skill that it has for such a phenomenal and expensive herb.
Like you said, your friend or your rep with the eyesight, there's actually quite a bit of research on that.
Oh, there you go.
Just trying to get to that one. Oh, yeah, so eye health, as would be expected, given its high level of carotenoids, it shows promise in eye health, especially for the retina. So that has been researched in Australia, actually, in a double-blind trial in 2010. 20 milligrams of saffron for 90 days, associated with significant improvement in retinal function in 25 patients with age-related macular degeneration. And there's a few trials on this age-related macular degeneration, glaucoma as well, increased pressure in the eye. It seems to exert this hypertensive effect on the ocular, reduce the intraocular pressure of the eye.
Yes.
And it's, because there's oxidative damage, plays a role in this. So anything that's highly antioxidant is going to help. So and then of course, there's been studies on high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, reproductive health. We have some great studies for PMS. It was actually traditionally used as a facilitator in difficult delivery. So, but it's also for uterine pain and in the menstrual cycle and regulating the menstrual cycle. And there has been a study showing that it can shorten the delivery process. However, you wouldn't want to take it early on in the pregnancy. So just right at the end with delivery is what it's been used traditionally in this Iranian sort of Persian area where it's been used a lot. They used it in the active phase of labour. They gave a capsule every 2 hours.
Wow.
And there was also a study for PMS with an ethanol extract.
Oh, okay.
So there was a few, So, and also for postmenopausal women with hot flushing and depression.
There we go.
They were significantly, the symptoms were improved. So it's really got a lot of, I think it's going to be a very popular asthma as well.
Yeah.
There's been a randomized trial on that in last year showing that for 8 weeks, the clinical symptoms were improved of asthma.
Wow.
So.
I mean, 8 weeks is great because we're not necessarily going across seasonal, times then. So 8 weeks is long enough to get a good snapshot of when you've got that improvement and whether, it was the saffron that did it. So it has
a long list of indications. It's, as well as in one of the principal uses in where it's traditionally used is bedwetting.
Oh.
And it's also obviously immunomodulating. They're really looking into that, as far as potential role in the treatment of cancer. And there's clinical trials on that as well, on its immunomodulating effect in healthy people.
Right.
But it had, had immunomodulating effects. And there's some preclinical research on its use in cancer. So yeah, it's a very exciting herb for us to have added to our stable.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's main. I think what everyone sort of knows about it. So this low mood, insomnia, cognitive disorder, improving brain function.
Yeah. It's an amazing, amazing herb. We're really lucky to have access to it and be able to give it to our clients, especially those, we've got a whole gamut of people, pretty much 50 onwards, even 45. And then, that you're going, yeah, actually, all of the reasons are here for you to be having this herb when we're looking at well health and continued well health.
Yeah, preventative.
All that preventative stuff, because the Alzheimer's and all of those functional problems. So if we can start early enough, if there is that genetic or familial susceptibility, sorry, say the word, then it's great to have these things so that we can start them on them at an early stage. And if they've already been on them because of the asthma or whatever, then it's a great one. It's a really good one to have on the shelves.
Like you said, that lady who was they just traditionally know to do that, to have 2 stigmas a day to fend off old age.
I mean, this was years ago that I had this conversation with her, and it was before saffron became a tincture for anyone. And I don't even know what we were talking about or how we'd got to it, possibly because my own mother is, getting older. So it might have been a conversation about that. And it's just something it's always stuck with me. 2 strands every day. A cup of tea is how she had it.
And I said, with 2 strands of saffron. What a wonderful way to live out your last years.
So an incredible herb that we're so lucky to have made available to us, with so much research behind it, so much information, and people doing work on it all the time. So we're super, super lucky. So have we missed anything from this one?
Oh, there's a lot. I'm sure we have. There's a lot on it, but I think
there's a lot on
it. We've done well. It's an ancient herb that's got a lot of modern attention. And mainly probably because of this low mood and brain function being a problem these days.
And I guess with all the traditional uses for it, and I mean, a lot of those studies are coming out of Iran where it grows. So, if you've got something, as we've always talked about, if it's growing local to you, it's probably indicated for you. So saffron doesn't necessarily grow local to me. I have tried growing it and it didn't work. But it is something that's certainly been part of my culinary life. And, I have it in food, and if you go to the Indian, I'll always have saffron rice. And I think, it is part of much everyone in a way. Who hasn't heard of saffron? Who hasn't seen some golden food, like the rice or whatever it is? So it's an absolutely phenomenal herb. We're very lucky to have it. So even at the high price that it is, but it is, you're not giving a lot of it. So
it's not. So
that is the bonus. Yes, our golden spice. So
exactly, red gold.
100%. So I think we might leave it there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing so much information about not only the saffron, but the processes that we have to go through, or you have to go through, so that we as TGA registered practitioners can use those herbs, because of course we want to be using the really high quality products that are available to us in Australia because of the standards that we've set. We're very lucky in Australia. Our standards are so high.
I mean, these days, with COVID and the pandemic, there's other herbs as well that we have to be very careful about adulteration, not just saffron, because a lot of herbs are now in demand and they're hard to get. So things like elderberry and echinacea, withania, any of these immunomodulating herbs, we're keeping a really close eye on identity to make sure there's no adulteration happening. When there's money to be made, there's a temptation to adulterate.
Yes, that is an absolute problem. That's one, because you're working with those farmers for such a long time, hopefully you're not going to find that with them because
No,
they're, yeah,
exactly. I mean, we have very good quality, but you have to make sure.
you have to make sure. And it's great that you've got the processes, the systems, and the skill base. You've got your scientists in that I met, and they're all wearing their white coats. So, you've got your scientists on staff who are doing that work and making sure that we really are getting what it is. So it's amazing.
Just keeping up, being aware of what you have to specifically be looking out for particular herbs. Being extra careful with particular herbs. So yeah.
That's amazing. So I think we'll finish there. So thank you very much for joining us again, Christine, and talking to us about your beautiful new herb, Saffron. And I really look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yes, look forward to it.